When most people think of wildlife, they often think of extravagant birds or cute and fuzzy mammals. But fear and disgust usually take their place as soon as scorpions or snakes are mentioned. Somewhere along the line, someone decided that venomous and violent are synonymous. But that's far from the case, and let's dive into why that is. So, I feel like introductions are in order. My name's Rohail. I'm a wildlife filmmaker based in the UAE. And not to flex on you guys or anything, but I've had the incredible privilege of living in a whole bunch of countries, hosting a variety of environments, whether that be rainforests, deserts, mountains, lakes, you name it. What did I learn from all of that? Well, you're gonna have to stick around to find out because there's too much to get into here. But my point is that whether it's travel, wildlife, nature, I think there's something to appreciate in every different environment, no matter what part of the globe you're on. At the end of the day, I think it's all about changing our perspective. And speaking about changing our perspective, let's get on with that video. Nocturnal wildlife, or wildlife most active at night, are incredibly fascinating creatures, but often forgotten and ignored, leaving them underappreciated and often misunderstood for a variety of reasons. And just as a little disclaimer, while I do talk a lot in this video about nocturnal wildlife, this video is actually aimed at a much larger group of species, which could include but is not limited to reptiles, amphibians, and invertebrates in general. Firstly, and probably the most obvious reason, most people don't find themselves out exploring nature in the middle of the night. And hey, maybe that's for good reason. We're not really built for the night. We don't have the best vision, and in places like the deserts and mountains of the UAE, there could be scorpions or venomous snakes around. And while that's all true, this is also where a lot of the misinformation and negative stigma towards these species and their character arises from. So poisonous and venomous are the same thing, right? So they're actually not the same, but a lot of people often confuse the two, and it mainly has to do with the mode of action. So venomous creatures work by injecting venom into the bloodstream. So you might be thinking of things like snakes with their fangs or scorpions with their stingers. On the other hand, poisonous creatures secrete toxins that, when ingested or absorbed by the skin, could prove harmful. So you could think of things like frogs, like the very popular
poison dart frog
you've seen a lot of photos of. They're a poisonous frog species. Or if we're looking at a native species, you could think of something like the African monarch butterfly. If you notice, there's a common theme between both these animals, and it's that they have this really bright, striking, vivid coloration. And that actually is a natural phenomenon called aposematism, which basically highlights to predators and people around that, hey, I'm poisonous, don't eat me. Thank you so much for that information. You're like really smart. No worries, I'm here all week. Many of us just inherently assume that because an animal is venomous, that probably means that they're violent, aggressive, or they're out to harm us. But that's actually a really painfully common misconception. And rather than tell you about it, I thought I would show you through my real experience. Hi guys, Field Rohail here. I thought I'd just show you a little friend who's chilling out over here sweetly in the sand. Bear with me. Let's see, are you able to see our little friend here? So, this is an Arabian horned viper, a species found here in the Middle East. They live out in the desert, and while they're actually called the Arabian horned viper, I believe, I'll double check the statistic and put it up, but I think only 20% or under 20% of them actually have horns. And if you guys notice, he's super chilled out. He's not doing anything. I'm not going to get too close to him because I don't want to bother him. And of course, just for safety, his safety and my own, I'm going to keep distance. But notice how he's not reacting. He's not chasing after me. He's not hissing at me. You might think that he rattles, but he's not. So there are no rattlesnakes endemic to this part of the world. They don't really see us as a threat unless we encroach on their space, or maybe we make a very quick and erratic movement. And they do that more out of defense and being scared of us rather than wanting to attack or harm us. Snakes are smart enough to know that they actually use their venom more for hunting. So animals like this Arabian horned viper may feed on geckos, beetles, or rodents. In the case of this Arabian horn viper, I don't think he's very large. He's actually on the smaller end of size that they get to. So I don't really think he would particularly be feeding on gerbils, as probably the most common gerbil species that you get here is called the Cheeseman gerbil. And from what I can look here, the Cheeseman gerbil is a fair bit bigger than him. So he wouldn't be able to eat or swallow the gerbil whole. And that's another interesting thing about snakes, is that they can chew or tear meat. They have teeth, but very, very tiny, fine teeth, which is, I think, more for just gripping when they're trying to swallow their prey whole. And this is very cool. You'll see now, the underside of his body is almost like pulsating because they can control their muscles, and this is actually how they sink part of their body into the sand. That's why you saw in the earlier clip that half of his body was submerged under the sand. So that's how they do it. If you're enjoying this video, make sure to smash that like button and hit. On the real though, if you're enjoying this content and you're interested in seeing more about wildlife in the UAE, or just getting more enrichment out of your content besides just enjoying and marveling at the beauty of nature and wildlife, then consider subscribing. There's a lot of exciting stuff up ahead, and I'm on the road to 1,000 subscribers, so any support helps massively. Thank you, and back to the video. So, where am I going with all of this? Well, what if instead of giving into our fears, we decided to challenge them instead? I spent a lot of time learning about these species, and I've also more recently in the last couple of years had the privilege of experiencing them in the wild, and they really aren't that bad. We often think that they're out to get us, but they're actually not acting out of aggression at all. They only feel threatened if we encroach on their space. If you take a simple example, if we encounter a snake and we decide to flail around out of fear and panic, or we shout out of nowhere, of course they're going to feel defensive and they're going to feel threatened. They don't know what we're there for or what our intentions are. It's the same way that if a stranger walked up to me out of nowhere, I would definitely be on guard. Or if someone came and stood next to me and started flailing around all of a sudden, I would instinctively flinch. That's the same way with snakes too. And actually in most of the cases when I've been out in the field, I've been a lot more likely to see the snake actually try to escape from us rather than strike us. Because they're just scared at the end of the day. You may feel scared yourself, but they're also actually feeling the same way. And I think the better way of looking at things, and I think us as humans could really benefit from doing this, if we just took a little bit more time to reflect on how our actions are perceived by other animals. Taking the time to learn more about these species helps us approach them from a perspective of understanding rather than judgment. And I do think some of the best experiences can actually come out of practical real-life situations. So if you have the chance or the opportunity to experience this kind of wildlife in your local area safely, then why not try that? I know, for example, here in the UAE, there are volunteering programs where you can go out into the desert with field specialists and learn all about these animals in a safe way that feels fun and accessible. Make it a group activity, right? You can go with some friends rather than going to the mall or just going for camping. You make the experience a little bit enriching, a little bit like a fun adventure, and you never know, it might just end up being your next addiction. But yeah, that's kind of the idea. And I do know also that through volunteering programs that I'm a part of, that I've ended up meeting a lot of really passionate naturalists and also people who are just getting into nature. And there's so much that you can learn from them. And they're always extremely welcoming and very, very open to sharing their knowledge and passion with everyone else. And that kind of stuff and that positivity is really, really infectious. And again, no one is asking you to wake up all of a sudden tomorrow morning and go out and catch a snake. These phobias sometimes are rational, sometimes they're irrational. And it takes time to get over them. And that's something that I'm telling you from personal experience. I didn't wake up one day deciding I want to be a wildlife photographer and I want to go handle snakes. It doesn't work like that for the majority of people. Everything is a natural progression and you don't need to go from 0 to 100 immediately. All these things take time, they take desensitization. And while I'm not speaking specifically in my context about snakes or reptiles or amphibians, for me it was insects. I'm deathly afraid of insects, and for the longest time I couldn't approach them. I could appreciate them from very far away or from video, but if they were near me, I couldn't stand it. It used to freak me out. But no, I've really gotten over it over time, and it's definitely challenging, but it's also, I think, incredibly rewarding at the end of the day too. I'm really happy that I was able to get over it. And you just celebrate the little wins. You feel more connected to nature. You feel like you can understand them better, and you also just feel a little bit less superficial and judgmental. And for the people who think that reptiles, amphibians, insects, or invertebrate in general are gross or disgusting or revolting, I frankly just think you need to reevaluate how you measure the value of things on the planet. Let me put it in a simpler context for you. Would you treat a human differently based on their appearance? Probably not, right? So why would you do it any differently with wildlife? They're also living creatures deserving of respect, love, and space. And at the end of the day, they have the right to live the same way you or I do. This may be a bit of a hot take. I don't know, we'll find out, I guess, once this is posted. But I don't necessarily think that a species needs to be pretty, extravagant, cute, fuzzy, or anything like that to be appreciated and valued. Every animal is different, and I think loving and embracing wildlife is embracing them exactly for what they are, not what you want them to be. So I'm not going to stand here and say that, for example, that I think a camel spider looks pretty or cute. And again, these are all opinions. Someone might actually think that they look cute and pretty, and that's perfectly okay. But in my case, for example, I'm not going to stand here and say that I think a camel spider looks pretty or cute or adorable. But I do think they're incredibly fascinating creatures, and they have a value on this planet and an incredible value in their ecosystem. And that's enough for me. So at this point, you're probably asking yourself, what is their role? What value do they provide to me? And I'm glad you asked, because now I'm going to tell you. So amphibians and reptiles, for example, are really great pest control. They help manage and regulate the populations of insects and rodents, for example. But at the same time, they also play a role for animals larger and higher up in the food chain by being their prey. So things like birds and mammals may feed on reptiles and amphibians to sustain themselves. In terms of amphibians specifically, because they deserve their own spotlight, animals like toads are great bioindicators for the quality of our freshwater ecosystems. So you would know that if you had seen my video on the Arabian toad, which if you haven't already, what are you doing? Go check it out. I'll link it up there. As for our invertebrates, so things like insects and arachnids, they are our powerful pollinators. So a vast majority of the agricultural crops, the vegetables and fruits that we consume and enjoy every day are all thanks to them. And besides that, animals like beetles, millipedes, termites are great decomposers. So they help break down organic matter and make sure that the nutrients are recycled through the entire ecosystem. And sadly, the impacts of this stigma trickles down even into conservation. The allocation of funding for the protection of species is rarely ever fairly distributed among all the species in need. A lot of popular and even non-threatened species often receive a larger portion of the funding, leaving the smaller but no less ecologically important species with little to no funding. For example, I was reading a study conducted by a group of researchers in 2024 that looked at over 14,000 conservation projects spanning over a 25-year period. And what I read about actually shocked me. As someone who's not directly in the conservation space, I am aware in some capacity to the disparity that exists between different species, but I didn't know just how crazy and insane that disparity was until I started looking at some of the numbers and statistics mentioned in this study. In all the conservation projects they looked at, only 6% of species marked as threatened were directly supported by conservation funding. And on the other hand, 29% of the total funding went to species that were actually of least concern, not even threatened. On top of that, they found that 82% of the total funding went to projects geared towards vertebrate species, leaving only 18% for plants, fungi, and invertebrate. So, what's the takeaway from this video? Well, I don't think it's anything all that crazy. I'm not asking you to wake up tomorrow and go change the world. But I do hope you'll think a little bit more deeply when you're about to squash a bug that you find in your home, or speak poorly about a species that maybe you don't fully understand yet. The perpetual spread of misinformation and stigma is something that has a much deeper impact than a lot of us initially anticipate, and I hope this video does a good job at highlighting that. And not only that, but the fact that the only way we can combat this is through educating our communities and changing the public perception about these incredible creatures. So to round off, I thought I'd leave you guys with a short little sequence that I put together, and I really hope you can look at it from a refreshed perspective. But if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to like, comment, and consider subscribing. I'm on the road to 1,000 subscribers, and any support helps massively. There's a lot of exciting stuff coming up ahead, and I would really love for you to stick around for it. But with that, enjoy the sequence, and I will catch you guys next time. You've seen the really popular red-eyed tree frog. It's a poisonous tree. No, it's a poisonous tree. It's not a poisonous tree.